Hello and welcome to the Yachting Brief, a podcast where I'm speaking to some of our industry's best experts. I'm finding out about their careers, what they've been up to and where they're heading next. So if you enjoy all things yachting and want to hear more insights of our industry, just keep on watching. And if you're out there and wondering what to do with your yachting brand and just not sure where to head, go to my website at studiovoyage.co.uk or message me on LinkedIn and I can see where I can help you elevate your yachting story. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Yachting Brief. I would like to welcome today's guest, Tom van Ossen. For the past decade, Tom has been one of the most sought-after photographers in the yachting industry, capturing some of the world's most breathtaking vessels with his distinct storytelling approach. His ability to blend artistry with precision has earned him collaborations with top yacht builders, designers and industry leaders. As he celebrates 10 years behind the lens, Tom reflects on his journey, his growth, defining moments and the lessons that have shaped him both professionally and personally. Welcome, Tom.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
You're very welcome. We'll start at the very beginning and obviously go through it all, but where did it all begin for you?
It's a long story, but, I can tell it pretty briefly.
We have time.
So, I grew up in a small town in the Netherlands. It's called Den Helder, and it's a beautiful place. Lots of space and a lot of beaches and sea and a Navy base where my dad was working on a Navy ship. So I grew up around boats, basically. Boats and helicopters as he moved to the airport after. So I was always fascinated about these things. And I was once on a school trip, I think. Yeah, I was like 9 years old, 10 years old. And that was my with photography. I took my dad's old camera and I, would film still. I finished the film in like 10 minutes. It was out of film. And we went to like a historical museum in the middle of the country. And I was like, wow, this photography thing is fun. But you're young and there's a lot of other things going on. And a couple of years before, I saw my first real super yacht in my hometown. And it always stuck with me. These boats, it was a beautiful thing, like the most beautiful boat you've ever seen. If you go from Navy ships, fishing vessels, suddenly you see 70-meter Amals in your hometown. And back then, 1999, this is one of the bigger boats on the water. So, I think that all came together in my young mind some way, like at some point it's gonna be, it's gonna merge and then let's explore. So yeah, I bought my first camera, I was like 12, 13. And from then it was just like a very natural, but also quite a long evolution. Bear in mind, so I started 12 and when I was 25, I joined Shipyard time. So there was a bit of a gap in between where I was just trying and failing, more failing than succeeding. But it was a nice ride and one with bad decisions and good decisions. And here I am.
Did you ever look at any other subjects or was it always just helicopters and yachts?
No, I think it was also spaceships. Us living here in Europe, there's not much of that going on.
No.
But that's for later. And
yeah, that's a further project.
Exactly, in the works. But it was always just boats and we have a port here in my hometown. It's Navy, it's offshore vessels like big deep sea diving vessels, and the occasional fed ship. Doing sea trials from my hometown. It's easy access to sea. I can recommend all the captains if you go up north, visit my place. It's nice, and you're most welcome. And so it was always whenever there was something happening, and this was pre-marine traffic, you had no clue what was going on. You just had to be lucky to, at some point, walk up to the port, see a nice boat, and, take some terrible photos.
We discussed that when we originally spoke about terrible photos. And do you look back now at some of them that you took and you just think, oh no, that can't see the light of day?
Yes, but that's even with photos I took yesterday or last week. Yeah. Moment. I mean, it's always a moment in time, like you're there, you're excited, especially when there's a new boat or, somewhere and you just think like this must be it. And you edit it, you're excited to show it to people. And you're like, well, this is probably the best work I ever did. But then after a while, you start to revisit it and you're like, hang on a second, there's so much wrong with this thing. And sometimes editing differently can help. But sometimes it's just not good enough. And I just think that's how you get better as well.
That's the art of it. And in the earlier days, what were the biggest struggles that you tended to encounter? Things that you just thought, how am I going to get over this? What is this?
For sure, the actual like operational struggles were you had no idea when, where the boat was going because you were not involved on the either shipyard side or owner side, which has changed now. Obviously, like now I'm mostly being booked by shipyards or owners or some brokers, but back then it was just like, yeah, I mean, we're waiting here for an hour now, but when is something gonna happen? Like
Yeah.
you just don't know. You just don't know if anything is
Crazy.
gonna happen at all. I mean, I remember one of my first jobs for Shipyard Times. We had the rumor that one boat was launching at 7 o'clock, so I got there at 7 a.m. to be waiting till 7 p.m. Like it's just a 12-hour wait. Yeah, my job, I think most content creators' job is waiting.
Just
And with
waiting.
boats, I mean, boats are no rockets, boats are slow and heavy. And when you're documenting these transports and launches and stuff, like they can't make a mistake. So they do it on their own tempo and, which is, you get used to it. Like by now I'm used to 5, 6, 7 hours of waiting. And, but there's also a risk with this waiting is that, sometimes you're very excited to do something, to document something. And if nothing's happening for a long time, I feel like my creative battery is draining a little bit, and I don't want
Yeah.
it to happen. But the longer you wait, at some point you've seen everything of this boat, and after a while you're like, okay, like. But that's the other side of the sport.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that people that aren't necessarily in the creative field either don't understand when you're not feeling inspired. It reflects so hard in your work, especially from my side when I'm doing like branding projects or design projects. I know I can look at a state of work and think I wasn't even having a good day or something didn't go or that was an amazing day. I was so inspired. And do you feel like that reflects almost in your photography and how you were feeling that day?
Yes, and obviously I feel it, and luckily my clients sometimes don't. I mean, so
Yeah.
I can see it exactly, and with boats especially, like it's not like something you could just grab and place the way the sun hits nicely or something. You can do that on if you do a full shoot in the Med,
Yeah.
and they're not even always, because you got the swell, the wind, edges open, close, whatever. But when you're doing a lot of things here in the Netherlands with these launches, it just happens. It
Yeah.
happens when it happens. I mean, there's a schedule, obviously, but we can't influence the weather. And I'm telling you, the weather here
Yeah.
isn't always the best. And so you have all these factors to count with. But on the other side, it also makes it very dynamic. And by now, having experience with a lot of like bad weather shoots, I mean, not just the transport or the launches, but also the sea trials on the North Sea, you get experience with it and you take it with you. And sometimes even when I'm in, a nice location doing a shoot, I'm like, give me some clouds.
Give me a bit of atmosphere. And in all of this, when did you decide, or was there a moment for you that you thought, this is my career now? Like, I am now a photographer and I am photographing super yachts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was like this years in between of just, doing some photos of boats. I mean, mostly here in my hometown. At some point I started traveling to Monaco, to the yacht show. And I love the boats. Like they're at some point you would say like they're your life. You wake up with boats, you go to sleep with boats. And at some point I had a chance. I was very lucky um to know some guys from the Monaco Yacht Show, and they got me in touch with the team of Shipyard Times in
That's what happened.
2014 already. When I was working for a helicopter company here in Den Helder, I had to make some choices. At some point, I was like, okay, I could join Shipyard Times, do what I love doing most, like take photos of boats, travel the world, or if I stay with the helicopter company, which I also love doing. And that was like a tough choice for me. But at some point, I chose SYT, and they got me in. Spent an amazing 3 years there, and that was the best thing I could do because they're so into this industry, and they gave me a platform to showcase my work. And obviously, it was a huge. It made give me a huge boost basically in getting to know people, and also then you start noticing how small this industry is. Like you see the same people when you go to the Cannes, Monaco, Singapore, or Dubai show.
Yeah.
It's and so you get to know people.
No, and at what point did you realize, was there like a picture or a picture that kind of either went viral or it was like the best one that everyone spoke about was your introduction to the industry?
Mm.
Insert picture here.
Yes. Well, I think what we started doing at Super Times, like me and my colleague Shaw, who is now, you know, the best videographer in the industry, and we work together a lot. And at some point, I said, like, look, all these guys are doing these cool aerial photos. I said, we can't do that. Obviously, we're here in Holland, and there were no drones. I mean, drones were coming up, but they were expensive, and we didn't know all these things. And then I said, like, okay, we should, when these boats come over the North Sea, we should rent a plane and fly over it and take aerial photos. So I remember our first boat we did that with was Kismet, I think.
No way.
Yeah, she went, and she passed the islands up here, up north, and we rented a plane from that little airport, and we hung out of the plane and start taking aerial photos from 500 foot. I'm telling you, if it's the first time you take an aerial photo of a boat at sea, even though, I mean, if I go back to those shots now, horrible, but it's just a cool feeling, like you got this boat and you have many different angles than you normally get, and you understand maybe the design better, or and obviously Kismet is the perfect example for that. It's a beautiful
Yeah.
Whisper she is now, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so then we started doing that, and then we got some other boats in, and then obviously the biggest hit of was it 2015, 2016, I think, was Dilbar. So she was launching like the biggest bar yacht ever, blah blah blah. So we were like, okay, we were there at the launch, and then she had her maiden journey. So she left Germany. We tracked it back then. We had the marine traffic, and we plotted a bit the course, and we said like, okay, if we go to the fourth island of the Dutch islands, we can try and find a plane there, jump on it, fly onto the sea, 60 miles. I mean, the photos, try and do it, it was stormy weather, very stormy weather. Try and take some decent photos from that altitude. But it worked out. And I think that was the moment when also with Super Times and the Super Times really started to look at me and Shaw like, okay, these guys are up to something different.
Yeah.
Like we didn't usually get these stuff. And then I found amazing pilots all along the Dutch coast. So if Ocean Co was doing a sea trial, I had a pilot in the Rotterdam area. And if Fetcher was doing a sea trial, I had a pilot in my area. So it was like we had this whole coast covered, and no big boat could come past us without us low over the sea, low over the bow, basically. So it was. I think that put us on the map, and people start to see your work, see different photos,
Yeah.
not just the Mediterranean stuff. It was like yacht spotting 2.0, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And what was the reaction from the vessels at the time? Because obviously we live in this world of secrecy and hidden, and there's you flying your little planes over them as they're trying to do their secret missions.
We have thought about these things. Like, can you imagine just being on the bridge and suddenly there's like this small plane flying in front of you in the middle of the sea, and we were like, what would you think? But I think with you know SYT being a big website, people
Yeah,
started to notice that, and then we even got like messages from captains or owners reps or uh, owners directly, like, guys, my new build's coming out in North Sea, like up on that plane and get some
and you're
photos.
like, I'm already in the sky. I'm already waiting.
Exactly. So there was something unique we did, and obviously now, with drones. I mean, if you go further out at sea, you can't, but you stand at the end of the pier and they come past, and it's like they're at open sea.
Yeah.
So the plane stuff is not happening anymore.
That makes me very sad. Like I feel like that's just such an epic part of your story, and having these network of pilots on the coast, it feels like almost it's lost. So I hope you get them back up in the sky at some point for a
At
little
some point, maybe. At
spin.
some point, it's gonna happen again. No, but those were fun. Those were great adventures, and I think those were obviously Dilbar. It was maybe like the biggest boat ever. You get
Yeah.
picked up by publications, and so that was a good one. And then you just start to evolve. You kind of go through all these lures and launches. I remember at some point I celebrated like what was it? Now seen like 2 kilometers of Lurson launches or something, like all the
I
length.
like that fact. That's a good way of putting it as well. It's not even like not
Yes,
60 boats. It's three
yes,
kilometers of boats.
yes. And by now I have lost count basically how many launches I've seen.
And at the moment, you're working directly with boat shipyards, owners, reps, owners.
Yeah.
Where does the scope end, or does it just not end?
No, it doesn't end. No, I mean, at some point, obviously, when I left SYT, because I felt like it was better for me to go independent, to start
Yeah.
working, with owners directly and yards directly, like you have much more access. You can plan, you can go anywhere basically. And
Yeah.
that was, I think for me, I'm now independent almost in June, 7 years. So that was a good decision.
As creatives, we're often posed with the question about imposter syndrome. Is that something that ever affected you whilst you were working, or you ever thought, should I be doing this? What will people not necessarily think because your work it was epic? Was there ever a time you thought, you know, can I do this? Am I doing the right thing? What will people do?
Well, I think you're always, I think as any creative, you're always like doubting yourself a little bit, like, are they gonna like this or stuff? Are they gonna be okay with it? But I think first and foremost, it's like I decided to first of all shoot for myself if I like
Yeah.
it, and same with the edits. If I like it this way, happy. And I was very lucky that my clients also liked it that way.
Yeah.
But I've always said to my clients, like, feedback is much like appreciated. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't like something, if it's too dark, if it's too, you know, contrasty, just let me know. I can adapt to that. But this is, I think, how the boat looks best. And to
Yeah.
be honest, when I go through all my hard drives, and I've got plenty of them, um, I'm looking at like older stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, that was dark, or
Yeah.
that was high contrasty, or that was very colorless. It was very, but it's like that's also evolving constantly, your editing style,
Yeah.
which is, now you understand light much better. You have, obviously, when you start doing dedicated shoots, you can position boats in whatever direction, like you can have the sun behind it or nice reflection on the hull. Like, so everything is constantly in motion basically around these boats.
Yeah. And you have quite a distinctive style as well. I wouldn't describe it as brutalism. I don't think that's quite a hard way of putting it, but you don't do the stereotypical things, and that's why I was always drawn to your work. And that's, I think, the original photos. I think the one that we ended up messaging over was one that it was the shell of the build you put out on. I'll share the link. I'll put it in the link when we post this. And it was just the shell, and it had no paint of the vessel,
Yeah.
and it looked like a spaceship. And
Yeah.
I just remember looking at it like, okay, this is somebody doing something different with it. It's not shiny white boats in the med. And of course, people have to cover those areas because that's such a large proportion of our industry. But your style, like, how would you describe your style?
Yeah. Constantly evolving. No, it is. I mean, I am very fascinated by the design, by the scale of these projects, and I'm always trying to put like a sense of scale in these things. So yeah, I remember it was also not when doing my first like shoots in the med. I mean, there's a certain expectation, obviously, from your client, like, hey, blue water, blue sky, jet ski, suntan vibe,
Yeah.
whatever. Suddenly you have
Cocktails on the sun deck.
Yes, suddenly you have to adapt to that because obviously in Holland you can get away with moody stuff because 90% of the time it is cloudy, rainy, whatever. But then, so you gotta adapt. And I think, yeah, my style is like, I see it evolving. Like, I'm just trying to really, I would say, honor certain designs and their designers, but also the shipyard, the craftsmanship. I mean, if you see the steel hulls with this steel plates connected, like there's so much knowledge and effort put into that. Like, also that, I think, and I'm very lucky that most of the clients I work with in Holland are also seeing that. Like, hey, you know, we're transporting a 80-meter hull through the Dutch countryside. Like, do we want to show this to the people? Because it's a lot of effort for the shipyard to do, and doesn't scare away owners or something. But on the other hand, it's a perfect way to showcase what's already gone into building this boat
Yeah.
before they start putting the wood, the fairing, the paint and stuff on it, right? So there's a lot that goes into it before. And I think I'm really happy that we also acknowledge that part of yacht building, basically.
Yeah, and I think again you told me about the vessel that you'd seen, and it was literally the first plates of metal being, bolted together, and you saw it launched. And like
Yeah,
you have all evidence of that, and that is truly incredible in terms of like just the storytelling and the build and the effort and the work of everybody. Because I like you think of yachts and you think of the crew, and I think what is the story that goes behind and the effort, even like the build captains, they might never step foot on that yacht again, but they have just spent their entire life dedicated to the build. And sometimes the build can be even more challenging than running the vessel. And
yes.
I think that's crucial as well.
I'm pretty sure like for me, in my experience, there's always you know, boat building is tough. It really is tough. And being close to that process, it shows as well. Like, it's not like, yeah, shipyards have launched hundreds of boats, but every boat's different.
Yeah.
And I think every captain, crew, and yard owner can acknowledge that boat building is never going to be easy.
Have you yet to experience like one that you've a vessel that's gone out and then come back in for a refit?
Yes, no, I've
You've done the refits.
the refit projects. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been 10 years in this business, so a lot of boats are either sold again or they start building a new boat, or the boat they launched 5, 6 years ago is coming in for a refit, it's coming in for an extension, it's coming in for whatever kind of upgrades. And I mean, that's also fascinating. And it's not just like exterior upgrades or anything. Most of it's interior, technical upgrades, obviously now with many different, I mean, LED, Starlink, whatever kind of technology they all
Yeah.
have. I think everyone most of them always want to have like the latest technology and features on board. And that's, yeah.
Yeah, of course. And there's an element of safety in there and all of those things as well. And why do you think it is that the Netherlands and these locations, the builders that you're primarily focusing on, are holding such standards and why they're held so highly in the industry? What is it they're doing differently?
Well, I think, I mean, I don't know if you've been to the Netherlands, but
Not yet. On my
most
list.
most of it is here is pretty organized,
Yeah.
right? Like there's even the roads, small thing. I mean, I travel all over the world, and whenever I'm back in Holland, I'm like, we're ridiculously well organized. And I think that might also reflect into, boat building. Plus, I mean, we've been a seafaring nations for centuries. Actually, most of the places where the shipyards are now, they used to be directly access to the sea, so they could build boats directly. But then we started to polder in land, but the knowledge was still there in these communities. I mean, if you look at small communities or small cities where they're building the biggest boat, like on Kaap, the Vet Ship, Aalsmeer, Makkum, or in Vlissingen for Amels, or Royal Houseman in Vollenhoven. These are small places. I mean, sometimes less than 5,000 people, but there's multiple generations working at these shipyards, and this knowledge is, I mean, I think it's literally in these people's DNA. Like, and I think that's always very impressive to see, like the dedication these people have. They're obviously maybe unlucky to see them working, and you know them being organized as a shipyard. I think it will reflect in the work they produce as well, because they want it to be
Yeah.
as good or better. And yeah, I'm very lucky to see that actually from up close.
Where your passion, it's literally in your blood, in your bones, in your culture
Yeah, it's
to
it's
feel it.
close. I mean, whenever I'm doing my shipyard tours or something, I mean, you always run into like cars with yacht brands on it, or subcontractors, or it's literally one big shipyard.
One big
You
ship,
can drive from the north, from Harlingen, Pasmakken to Vollenhoven, all these small places where they all build boats. And plus, and that's just the main yards. Then you have the hull builders, the superstructure builders, the mast builders, anything. It's there's a lot of things going on.
I mentioned with another guest on one of the previous podcasts, and he was talking about how he's 25 years in the industry, and he'd come into a shipyard in the Netherlands somewhere, and it was so small at the time. And originally, the locals were a bit put out by it, and especially with crew coming in,
Mm.
and then it became a bit of a change, and the crew started to integrate a little bit with more with the locals, and then it experienced like an economic shift and the ability to people in the local towns to cater for a crew and the crew to cater back again. And the value that that must have had as well is obviously evident because look how much it's boomed.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine that if you're in a small place like Monnikendam, where Hartford is, I mean, this is beautiful place, like old historic town, but very, very small. I can
Yeah.
imagine a lot of people in this village are very happy that the shipyard is there, where they're pumping out 62-meter boats, with like 16 crew on it or something. They have to live somewhere, they got to eat. There's parties for the owner if he comes along. So there's a lot of people depending on these shipyards.
Yeah. And I guess that's the evolution of it as well, which leads us really well into like the new technology and, how we mentioned briefly about your use of, you were going in planes, you were chartering small planes, and then now you're using drones. And what other things like advanced cameras, drones, all this kind of things is shaping your craft, like specifically to you?
I mean, drones were for sure the biggest invention, and it's really changed the game basically. I mean, you got so much. Look, I like sometimes the old school stuff where we have to climb into cranes and do all kind of risky other things to get atop of the boat, or even on the transports through the Dutch countryside. Like at some point you had like an address of a lady who was living slightly elevated, and at some point I brought her cookies every time a big boat would come past. And obviously now you don't do that anymore because now you
Oh,
can get and a shot from below, and you fire up the drone and you get a shot from above. So it made it drones have made it much more. You can get very creative with them. You can absolutely ruin it, but you can also get very creative and
yeah.
become slightly decent with it. And but it also comes with expectations from clients. They're like, hey, but don't forget the drone stuff. And I'm like, but now looking back, because now I think I'm trying to. In the beginning, it's drones. You go to these small villages and yeah, get a drone shot in. But now actually, there's 8 other guys with drones trying to take the same shot. So
Yeah.
you're trying to come up with some new ideas again, or some ideas you had before you had these drones, and start to work on that a bit more. But on the other hand, there's always the clients which like, yeah, but we want drone shot. So sometimes it's nice to do a job like that just for yourself, not for a
Yeah.
client. So you can get a bit more. There's no expectations, and whenever there's no expectations, I think it's with everyone. You sometimes get your best stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And then you have to go and visit that lady with the cookies. That's all I've been thinking about. That
She
that
moved
poor woman.
houses, unfortunately. Yes, I do think that.
And obviously we really touched on this when we first initially spoke. And everyone can buy a drone and everyone has an iPhone.
Yes.
What is your opinion of this?
Well, this is the thing. Like everyone has a drone these days, or not everyone, but a lot of people are, want to get by one. Basically, it's
Yeah.
available. You can go have anything from 300 to 3,000 euros, which is great. Obviously, like you see awesome stuff from a lot of people, but not always. Just being able to fly a drone doesn't make you a photographer. Is the thing. So that is competition, which is not always easy.
Yeah.
There's a lot of crew out there with drones, which is awesome. Like they make like videos of their boating locations, charter videos and stuff. But I still think there should be a difference between a drone pilot and a professional photographer.
Yeah.
And it's the same with iPhone. Look, we are in the lucky business that most of these boats are absolutely stunning. So even if you take a terrible iPhone photo and you put it on your Instagram or whatever, people still gonna say that's a beautiful shot, mate. But it's not. Like the boat is beautiful, but the photo is absolutely terrible. I mean, so that's where the difference is, and that's where we need to find a balance. Like, because it's, besides there being nice boats, there's also very ugly boats with very terrible angles, and it's always my job to make an ugly boat look nice as well. So it's it is challenging to, it's a competition, and you're definitely lose clients with that, like because there's captains and owners saying, look, we got to drone ourselves on board. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it doesn't. Yeah, but then you see the footage, and obviously if you have a video or a photo of a beautiful boat going through the fjords, and it's overexposed and grainy, and the movements are shaky, Many people still say it's beautiful because this
Yeah.
boat and the surroundings are beautiful, but it doesn't make it good. So this is what I'm always trying to,
Yeah. To encourage to the owners and things. And what is it that owners are looking for in terms of your work? Is it for their personal work, or is it because they're about to sell? Why
well,
are they
this
contacting you?
mostly uh, a lot of them is personal because some of these projects are very personal to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've shot some interiors as well, and you're like, whoa, this is literally their museum. It's like their family museum basically.
Yeah.
And but also what I'm trying in my sales pitch is always like, hey, but one day you're gonna sell this boat. Then we
Yeah.
might as well shoot it now while everything is still looking great.
No
But
children have ran around and
most of
wrecked the
the time, these
place.
boats are beautifully maintained, but paint jobs are always, at some point the paint job is gonna fade. So I always say like, look, we just shoot it now. We shoot it, and if you want to sell it, then at least you got the photos. So that's always another angle of it. But a lot of owners they just want like a nice book of their boat, of the build process, of everything combined, and then also the last, the final shoot also needs to.
Yeah. And ultimately, it's added value in something that is essentially a business. I think that is something really pivotal in our industry. Yes, it's essentially a rich man's toy. That's what it is.
Uh,
But if you're a charter vessel and that's what you're going to make money in, invest in it. You wouldn't expect to sell a house and the imagery be rubbish.
yeah.
So I think that's where the value lies. And if an owner can see that, or a rep or a captain, in fact, that's so crucial.
Yes. No, for sure. I think content is very crucial, especially for charter boats, done
Yeah.
rightly, but also I think for private boats. I think it's just good to have it documented, to have it like, documented properly and for many reasons.
And where does social media play a part in that? Because, we have NDAs up to our eyeballs, and, you have such a following now. I don't know how many followers you're up to on Instagram. It's something insane.
Something in the 40,000, I think it's, well, we can check.
And we'll do a live check.
46.8, yes.
Yeah. Like it's impressive. It's very impressive. And what has the role of social media played in terms of like your personal brand and who you've had to become, to do this?
Yeah, I think I mean, when did I start it? 2017 or something? I don't even know. And I wasn't. I mean, Facebook I had back then, but that was more for my local Den Helder
Yeah.
lighthouse photos. Beautiful lighthouse we have here, and that's
It's like you work for the tourism board
yes.
of you're like, it is beautiful, you must visit.
And then I just started uploading what I think was nice. Suddenly you start to see that you're coming to these unique places and you're seeing these unique boats, and hey, do something with it. And then you post it, and people start to like because they also see a side of yachting they usually don't see, especially the North Sea stuff, the
Yeah.
transports, the launches. I mean, back then, I think also some yards didn't even hire professional photographers for their launches. Because, it was just a thing. The transport was never it was documented but not published because they also
Yeah.
didn't see the added value in it. So it is. I mean, it became a really easy tool to reach people, and at some point it just started to take off. I mean, this is the thing, like if you're going for the big white boats, people love this stuff. So they're drawn to it. And then you start to have your own style and do some different shots, experiment a little bit with your own photography, which works out sometimes, but definitely not always. And then you start building it up. But now, I mean, it was very important. I would say between 2019 and 2023, I got a lot of business from it, like owners, kids texting me like my dad has a boat, all these things. And now I think it's still important.
Yeah.
Uh,
But it's like a full-time job in itself, maintaining any sort of social media, whether
yes,
that be LinkedIn, anything.
I am most of the time I'm just terrible at it. Like sometimes I don't post something for 2 months and suddenly it happens again like, 2 times a week or whatever. I'm not very consistent. But it's also because I would say my best stuff is on all these hard drives, which I
Have
can't.
you have you got that box with you of the hard
It's,
drives?
it is half empty now, but yeah, I've got and there's a lot of it more. There's a lot more, and that is my gold one.
So is there an image, I've put it down, but you might not actually have it prepared, and is there an image that, you have one?
Yes.
Your most breathtaking image.
It's not my most breathtaking image.
What is it?
It's the image I started. It was basically the image, the reason why we're having this conversation. It was back in September 2011. I mean, obviously, I was with yachts, dealing with yachts before, but I had this little fire inside me that needed the oxygen to explode and really make it my life. And that was while being on a holiday in Ibiza in 2011 when I saw Modial 8. But so you can't really see it. It's a bit over.
No, I'll definitely input it in. I
Yes.
think I can get the vibe of it.
Obviously, I came with this ferry going from Ibiza to Formentera,
Yeah.
and I see this submarine-shaped yacht over there. And obviously, everyone back then knew about Modial A. If you were some kind of had some interest in like ships and stuff, you knew that in Germany they launched this boat that looked like a submarine, and there were all these talks about it. And suddenly, I'm on this ferry to Ibiza to Formentera, and I see this. I'm like, that's it. That's the one. And
Everyone stand back.
yes, and they went to lay on the beach, and I was like climbing the rocks there on Formentera, trying to get a shot. And actually, the original shot is terrible, but I had it worked up a little bit. Yeah, and back then I remember I came home from the holiday. I was working at a shipping agency back then, and the first thing I did, I went to the top 100 yachts. I printed it, and I started studying it. And back then I was like, next year, 2012, I need to go to the Monaco Yacht Show. I made it there, took some photos. They liked it, and that's how I got my contact with the Monaco Yacht Show as well. So it was like I would say it was very proactive. I was very proactive in everything, and sometimes maybe a bit too much, but in the end, it got me where I am now, and
No.
yeah, it was a good one. So that photo is actually for me. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure if I would have not um took that ferry. I mean, if I had not taken that ferry ride to Formentera, I'm not sure if I had that in me. I mean, maybe in one way or another, but that was
Divine
the point where
intervention put you on that ferry.
I really have to. That was the moment I was like, you feel it. You're like, oh, I need to do something. I need to do something with this. And that was Modial A, and I've been very lucky. I've seen her a couple of times since then.
It holds a soft spot in your heart. You look very nostalgic.
Always, I remember I was doing a shoot in the Maldives 3 years ago, um, and she was also anchored there. And at some point, I had to go back to the airport, and I said to the tender driver, I said, "We gotta make a detour. I gotta see her up close again." And he did it. It was very, very nice.
A full circle moment also. I
Yes,
like that.
absolutely.
So we've gone from what started it to we'll go to what is coming up.
Yeah.
What have you got? No, I've put the question down as next 10 years. What, future vision, future Tom, what's happening?
Future Tom. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of people know that. I mean, I love boats. I adore yachts, and but I've one passion that's slightly stronger, and it's always winning, and that's space flight. I'm really into rockets and things and everything space, and I'm trying hard to get into that as well. I mean, not as not like completely abandoned boats because I love it, and I think there's a lot of similarities actually between yachts, yacht design, space flight. I think both are the pinnacle of design and engineering.
Yeah.
I mean, I would say maybe yachts is more like engineering led by design, and rockets and spaceships just have to be that way, and they
Yeah.
just look cool because the engineering behind it is awesome. So it's like close. So when I was visiting um, Starbase last year in Texas, I was like, it's still cool. But unfortunately, I'm on the completely wrong continent to be
Yeah.
pursuing a career in that. But hopefully one day it's gonna take me to some of these places.
I have no doubt that we'll have a conversation in another couple of, I say months, hopefully months, maybe even years, and you will tell me that something is happening
Yeah,
and you are going to space.
I'd love to go to space tomorrow if I could, but no, I think there's like in yachting, there is also a lot to improve in space flight content communications and stuff. Like it's everyone is gearing up a little bit, but yeah, that for me would be a dream. But in the meantime, I'm just doing projects here, and hopefully, you see it now, like owners are pushing technical boundaries, and
Yeah.
so it's a very exciting time to be in the yachting industry. Actually,
No,
I
it
hope to
is.
remain a part of that for a little longer.
But if anyone has a spacecraft, please let Tom know.
Yes, please let me know. I'm very happy to shoot it.
Mr. Musk, wherever you are, if you happen to be watching this podcast by accident. So, where are you going to be this year? Have you got plans to do yacht shows? Where can people find you? Where are you up to?
I think I'll definitely be doing Monaco.
Nice.
That for now, I think is the only one. I mean, in the meantime, I'm just trying to do some shoots. There's some shoots coming up in Norway. Got some stuff going on in the Med, and like there's always here and there, and this work is very like jumpy. You go from here to there, or you're not going anywhere. That's also the thing. Like sometimes it gets.
Or it's on a Friday, then it turns to a Wednesday, then it turns to a Sunday.
I mean, I think everyone working in this industry knows that yachting is very unpredictable. Boats are very um, complicated machines, and a lot of things can change. I mean, owners' plans can change, small things. But yeah, a lot of exciting travels coming up.
Good. I'm so
Luckily,
glad.
also still a lot in the Netherlands.
Thanks. Brilliant. Keep that tourism going, Tom.
Yes, no, everyone is always welcome up here.
That's so good. And thank you so much. So, what is your Instagram handle if people want to try and find you and have a look at the most epic shots of yachting?
Yeah, my Instagram is just my name, @Tom van Oossanen, with the double O and a double S to make it easy.
Even more complicated.
I'm sure you'll find it.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for coming on the Yachting Brief. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, and good luck with all your next adventures.
Thanks, Kate. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Yachting Brief. And if you enjoyed it, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe below. And if you want to get involved in season 2 of the Yachting Brief podcast, give me a message at hello@studiovoyage.co.uk.